This is TWiT.
Now, here's the big question. I've asked it before, and now I'm asking it even more urgently. At this point, is it almost unethical for Apple to say you have to own an iPhone or else you don't get any of the benefits of this watch? We're not going to let you pair it with a MacBook. We're not going to let you pair it with an iPad, even though it works just great when you don't on your wrist, just simply as a data collection tool, as a time keeping thing, and something that can communicate with your home Wi-Fi and maybe give you those alerts and give you those emergency contacts as you go. I really wish that Apple would explain why you need to own an iPhone, other than, well, conceptually, we wanted to partner with an iPhone because you'll have the iPhone in your pocket and the watch on your wrist. But as listeners are disgusted with my repeating, I am an Android user, but I'm also an Apple Watch user, and because it's my favorite fitness watch. It's really, really cool. Apple even said that this is the best-selling watch of any kind of watch out there, not just fitness watch. It is a cool watch. And the great thing is, when you don't have it like paired, when you don't have it tethered to your phone at all times, I keep it in airplane mode, and I get days and days and days worth of battery life out of it. Meanwhile, it's still like giving me my rings. It's still telling me the time and giving me basic features. At some point, don't we have to ask Apple if this has such great potential to improve people's lives, extend people's lives? Aren't you sort of obligated to at least open it up so that people who don't maybe have an iOS device but not necessarily a phone can use it, or even people who have just simply a Wi-Fi signal inside their house, and that'll be good enough for the user to be able to download software updates, install apps, communicate with the outside world? It saddens me that they're not doing the same thing with the Apple Watch that they did with the iPad and the iPhone and the iPod, which is to say that we're making this device for everybody, not necessarily as a way to get people more locked into the Apple ecosystem. Am I being a curmudgeon here, or I can be a curmudgeon and have a point? But what do you think, Alex?
I think that they had the same pattern in earlier ones as well. When we first got our iPhone, you had to plug it in, you had to do all this stuff, and we were like, why can't we just untether the iPhone and just let it update? And eventually, they got to the point where you could do that. By the way, if you don't, as I have found, if your kids forget all their passcodes, you really wish you had synced to the computer. I'm just saying. So anyway, but I think that I think that has less to do with any kind of business end of things and more to do with the user experience of people having a good experience with the phone. With the watch, is that the easiest way to update it, the easiest way to make it useful from Apple's perspective is probably. But I think I'm just saying it's. Yeah. But I'm just saying I think that what they want is that the people who got the watch have the highest value of that have it. They're not as worried. They have a lot of people who have the phone, and so I think that they're less worried about people who don't have the phone. I will say that while you like it, I bet you that I generally view Apple's view of product development just from the outside as what will 90% of the people want to do 90% of the time. If you're in the 10%. Or doing something that you want to do 10% of the time, Apple's probably not for you. That's why a lot of power Android users are power Android users, is because they want to do things that live in that 10-10 range. And I think that Apple really focuses on it. And I bet you there's less than 10% of the people who have Apple Watches have something other than an iPhone. I'm willing to put money on that.
This is just something that I feel. This is not a thing where that 90-10 thing, which makes sense in so many ways. I don't think it really applies here, because now I got as my general practitioner every time that my GP, who I get my physical from every 2 years, was also my dad's GP. And so usually, like when we talk about like long-term health care, he uses the phrase, well, your genes absolutely suck, because he knows my dad's history and my grandparents' history, and heart attacks getting people in their mid-50s is part of that wonderful mix that we call the Anatco gene assortment. And this is I had actually sort of set aside some money to like upgrade my 2 or 3 year old like Moto 360 Android Wear smartwatch, which I love, and I'm really excited about the next generation of hardware that was kind of semi-revealed a couple of days ago. But I really was as easily tempted before to replace it with a new version of the Apple Watch. And with the Apple Watch Series 4, I'm even more tempted because, again, there are times where it's not like I smell toast and I lose my color vision for 3 seconds and it comes back on again. I'm talking about I just felt a little bit dizzy for just about a second, and I don't know whether it's because I got up too fast or something like that. It would be kind of cool to know, to basically, if there's to have this little watch, this little thing watching over me, not for my entire heart health, but at least looking after a certain part of it, and at least collecting data that can be used to avoid my getting the zipper in the middle of my chest. And this is why I really would like Apple to find a way to accommodate people who don't necessarily have an iPhone. Who I have an older iPhone that I keep synced to my existing Apple Watch for the purpose of keeping it up to date and making sure the time is synced when the battery goes all the way down to flat. But I think that's an artificial thing that they're putting in there. And if they really do think that this is such a brilliant device that will help people's health, I think that it's worth their investment to extend it to people who are outside the ecosystem. I have blathered on. Kelly, what do you have to say?
Well, the most generous explanation I can come up with for it is that they are saving people from having to spend any more time in iTunes than absolutely necessary. Because remember, my fondest wish from any Apple event is that Tim Cook comes out on stage with a big stack of paper and says, "This is the iTunes source code," and he turns to his left and feeds it to a wood chipper. This is my fondest wish. This is my fondest wish. A close second is that at 10 minutes to the hour, everyone in the audience stands up and swings their arms for a second because they've got a move ring that has alerted them. But anyway, that's beside the point. I think I agree with part of what Alex was saying, which is that I think they're going to get there. I think part of it is that the watch is new and it's harder to make it self-contained for over-the-air updates. I think the advent of cellular to the watch is part of what is going to make that possible. Just like over-the-air updates on your iPhone were a thing that we didn't get for a really, really long time. And I think it's just a matter of the evolution of that. And secretly, I'm sort of glad that they're not doing that. For another crazy theory that I would like to put out there, because I thought about this before when I was having an issue updating my Apple Watch, is why can't I just plug it into iTunes? Why do I want to plug it into iTunes? Well, I don't. But maybe part of down the line, we're going to get what I've thought we've needed for a long time, which is a separate store application on macOS and a separate backup application on macOS, something that sort of works hand in hand with image capture. Like when you plug in your phone and image capture pops up so that you can take all the pictures off your phone. That we also get a backup utility that works a lot like the image capture stuff does. And that maybe we'll get one for the watch. And then you download the watch utility if you need it. It's part of macOS. It would be free in the App Store if it's a thing that you need. If you don't need, don't worry about it. Just like you do on the phone now. And so my hope is that at some point when they do break iTunes apart and build it all up again for the future, that's a part of what happens so that the watch can be a little bit more autonomous. And if they use whatever that technology is that they're using, then it would also work for people who are Windows users. Or people like you who are Android users. And so it takes the phone out of the equation a little bit. I think they need to figure out the rest of what it's going to take for the watch to be a self-contained unit by itself without having to, beam the health information back to the phone or, whatever that kind of stuff is. Being able to manage that internally and then be able to shuffle that off to another device, whether it's a computer or a phone. Maybe you'll get an option. To figure out how to do that effectively so that that's information. Like if you needed to restore a backup, that's a thing that could happen for you.